The world of air travel used to be widely different, filled with quirky and luxurious features that made perfect sense at the time, but have completely disappeared from modern aircraft. Stick around, because some of these are almost too wild to believe. Number 1. The in-flight piano bar. In the 1970s, American Airlines installed electric Wurlitzer organs in the coach lounges on their Boeing 747s. It created this incredible airborne social club where passengers could gather for a sing-along and sip cocktails. The problem was, these flying cocktail parties were heavy and took up a ton of space. After the 1973 oil crisis made fuel prices skyrocket, airlines had to get serious about costs. They quickly realized replacing the piano with more seats was way more profitable, and the music abruptly stopped. Number 2. Full-blown cocktail lounges. Before the piano bar, the upper decks of early Boeing 747s were often dedicated lounges. Qantas had its famous nautical-themed Captain Cook Lounge, and Continental Airlines boasted a Polynesian pub in the back of its 747s and DC-10s that was open even to economy passengers. The idea was to mimic the glamour of ocean liners. The downside was, just like the piano bars, rising fuel costs and the need to cram in more passengers made them an economic nightmare. The space was just too valuable to be used for anything other than ticketed seats. Number 3. Multi-course gourmet meals on real china. Forget today's foil-wrapped trays. In the golden age, dining was an event. Passengers in all classes would get these elaborate multi-course meals with things like lobster and carved roasts, all served on actual bone china with real silverware. It felt more like a fine dining restaurant than an airplane. The reason it disappeared: cost and weight. The expense of the food itself, plus the sheer weight of all that heavy crockery, just wasn't sustainable as flying became available to the masses. Number 4. Onboard sommeliers and carving stations. To go along with the gourmet food, some airlines got even more theatrical. It wasn't unheard of to have a sommelier help you pair wine with your meal. But the wildest part was the in-flight carving station. A flight attendant would wheel a whole roast down the aisle on a trolley and carve slices right there at your seat. It was pure spectacle. But this was an early victim of cost-cutting. The specialized training and heavy equipment were just too expensive to keep around. Number 5. In-flight fashion shows. In the 1960s, Braniff International Airways, known for its wild, colorful planes, decided the cabin aisle was a perfect fashion runway. They'd actually hold fashion shows during the flight where flight attendants modeled the latest trends. It was certainly a unique way to pass the time. The problem was, it was a logistical nightmare. It was disruptive, and most passengers just wanted to get where they were going. As airlines focused more on efficiency, the catwalks were grounded for good. Number 6. Free-flowing champagne and unlimited cigarettes. Today, you're lucky to get a free soda. But back then, the drinks flowed freely, and champagne was common even outside of first class. Even more jarring to us now, passengers were often handed free cigarettes. Smoking was so normal that ashtrays were built into every single armrest. The free-flowing booze disappeared because of simple economics, but the end of in-flight smoking was a public health battle that took decades to win. Number 7. Sleeping berths in all classes. Long before lie-flat seats, you could get an actual bed. Inspired by luxury trains, early long-haul planes like the Boeing Stratocruiser and the Curtiss Condor biplane had sleeper berths. American Airlines advertised the world's first complete sleeper planes as early as 1934. You'd get Pullman-style bunks with mattresses, sheets, and privacy curtains. They vanished for 2 reasons: economics and safety. They took up way too much cabin space, and getting them certified to be safe during turbulence became a huge challenge under modern regulations. Onboard stenographers. This sounds insane by today's standards, but in the 1950s, Pan Am offered an in-flight stenographer for businessmen. A professional secretary was on board to take dictation on a typewriter and have letters ready for you when you landed. The logic was that it was the ultimate executive perk. Of course, the service was incredibly niche and expensive. The arrival of portable tape recorders and later laptops made a flying secretary completely obsolete. Spiral staircases. The early Boeing 747s were famous for their upper deck lounges, and the way you got there was a glamorous spiral staircase. It was a striking design feature. The problem was, these staircases were a nightmare. They took up a ton of floor space, were almost impossible to navigate with a service cart, and were a serious safety hazard in an evacuation. Airlines eventually swapped them for boring but practical straight staircases to maximize space and safety. Number 10. Pneumatic tube messaging. The massive German Dornier Du X flying boat from the 1930s was so huge it reportedly had a pneumatic tube system, like the kind you used to see in old department stores. It allowed messages and small items to be sent between different parts of the plane. It was an innovative solution to a problem that didn't really exist on most other aircraft, and the idea never caught on. Number 11. The Trolley Vader Lower Deck Galley. Wide-body jets in the 1970s, like the Lockheed L-1011 and DC-10, came up with a new idea to free up space. Put the kitchen in the cargo hold. Flight attendants would prepare meal carts downstairs and send them up on a pair of small elevators called trolley vaders. While it made more room for seats, the system was mechanically complex and a logistical nightmare. If the elevators broke, meal service just stopped. Most airlines eventually moved the galleys back to the main deck for reliability. Number 12. Onboard video games. Long before you had hundreds of movies at your fingertips, you had Pong. In 1975, Braniff International Airways became the first airline to offer in-flight video games, letting passengers play the arcade classic. It was a fun novelty. But the real revolution came in 1988, when Northwest Airlines introduced the first individual seatback screens, giving every passenger a choice. The old single-game console became a relic overnight. Projector-based in-flight movies. The very first in-flight movie, Howdy Chicago, was shown on an Aeromarine Airways flight back in 1921. For decades, this was how it worked. A single film was projected onto a big screen at the front of the cabin. Problem? Everyone had to watch the same movie, and the sound was often terrible, with engine noise drowning out the dialogue. The personal seatback screen in 1988 made the shared movie experience obsolete almost instantly. Free postcards from the sky. Airlines used to give out these beautifully illustrated postcards that you could send to friends and family, proudly announcing you were writing from 35,000 feet. Flight attendants would even collect them and mail them for you upon landing. It was a charming touch from a time when flying was still a novelty. This disappeared because of simple economics. As flying got more common, it was an easy and cheap perk for the airlines to cut. 15. Rear-facing seats. It might seem strange, but studies have shown rear-facing seats are actually safer in a crash. The military has used them for years for this exact reason. Some airlines, like British Airways, have even tried them in business class. So why aren't all seats facing backward? The main reason is us, the passengers. Most people find the idea of flying backward weird and disorienting. Airlines, afraid of a customer backlash, have mostly stuck with what feels comfortable. Number 16. Swiveling cabin chairs. Those 1970s lounges were all about being social, so they had swiveling chairs that let you turn around and chat with your neighbors. But these seats were an economic and safety nightmare. They were heavy, which burned extra fuel, and they were mechanically complex. In an emergency, making sure every single chair was locked in a forward-facing position was a major evacuation hazard. They were quickly replaced with lighter, safer, fixed seats. Concorde's Droop Snoot Nose. The iconic Concorde was a marvel, but it had a design problem. Its sharp, pointed nose was great for supersonic flight, but completely blocked the pilot's view of the runway during takeoff and landing. The solution was the famous Droop Snoot, a hydraulically powered nose that could be lowered. While it was a brilliant piece of engineering, it was also incredibly complex and heavy, requiring its own backup systems. It was a necessary feature that disappeared right along with the Concorde in 2003. Water injection engines. Early jets like the Boeing 707 sometimes needed a boost to get off the ground on hot days. The solution was to spray demineralized water into the engine's combustion chamber. This cooled the engine, increased air density, and provided a temporary burst of thrust. The downside? It produced enormous clouds of thick black smoke and was incredibly loud. As jet engines got more powerful and efficient, this messy and crude system simply vanished. Number 19. Landing gear viewing ports. On some older planes, pilots had a low-tech backup feature, a small window in the cockpit or cabin floor that let them physically see if the landing gear was down and locked. In an era of less reliable electronics, being able to visually confirm the gear was a huge confidence booster. As aircraft systems became more advanced with multiple redundancies, the need for this direct visual check was eliminated. In-flight magazines. For decades, the seatback pocket was home to the in-flight magazine. But with the rise of personal devices and seatback entertainment, fewer and fewer people were reading them. The COVID-19 pandemic was the final nail in the coffin, as airlines removed them for hygiene reasons and never brought them back, saving millions in printing and fuel costs from the extra weight. In-flight smoking. It's almost impossible to imagine now, but airplane cabins were once filled with cigarette smoke. The push to ban smoking came not just for passenger health, but for crew safety. Flight attendants' unions were key in fighting for the ban. In the US, the ban started rolling out in 1988 on short domestic flights, were extended in 1990, and finally covered all domestic and international flights by 2000. And the reason you still see ashtrays in lavatories? It's an FAA requirement. If someone does illegally light up, there has to be a safe place to put it out. Number 22. Paper navigation charts. For most of aviation history, pilots navigated with huge binders full of paper charts that could weigh over 40 pounds. Flipping through these in a cramped cockpit during a critical phase of flight was a huge workload and created potential for error. The introduction of the electronic flight bag, usually an iPad, replaced all that paper with a lightweight, searchable database that dramatically improved pilots' situational awareness. Number 23. Analog cockpit dials. The cockpit of an older plane, like a 707 or Concorde, was a confusing sea of analog dials and gauges. Pilots had to constantly scan dozens of individual instruments just to get a mental picture of the plane's status. Today's glass cockpits have replaced all that clutter with large digital screens that combine information into a single, easy-to-read display. This makes flying fundamentally safer by reducing the chance of misreading a crucial dial. Number 24. Use of asbestos insulation. In the mid-20th century, asbestos was seen as a miracle material for fireproofing. It was used extensively in aircraft engines and fuselage walls. Of course, we later discovered that asbestos is a deadly carcinogen. By the 1980s, its use was banned in aircraft manufacturing, and airlines began the expensive process of removing it from older planes. This feature disappeared for one shocking reason. It was slowly poisoning people. Open cockpits. The very first passenger planes were often modified military aircraft with open cockpits. Pilots wore leather helmets and goggles to protect themselves from the freezing wind. This wasn't just uncomfortable, it was incredibly dangerous. Pilots suffered from exposure and had their vision blocked by rain and snow. The development of the enclosed heated cockpit was one of the single most important safety advancements in aviation, turning flying from a risky adventure into a reliable form of transportation. What feature on planes today do you think will be on a list like this in 50 years? Let us know in the comments below.